Here's the top results for Acne Studios on Mercari. Designer pieces for cheap. Awesome, right? Guess how many of these are fake? Here's the answer. On the first page in the top 15 products, more than half are fake. Okay, how about another brand? Nobody would fake our favorite independent designer, right? How about 𝗵𝗽𝗀? Unfortunately, no. The fakes have invaded here too. Social media is full with content of people showing off their Japanese auction hauls, how you can get great pieces for rock-bottom prices, and how you can crap out big hauls of your own. But there is a concerning lack of responsibility in talking about just how sketchy it can be. Especially Mercari, which is way worse than you imagine. It's not only big brands now, it's everyone. From little tiny indie brands to even freaking archived pieces no longer in production. Nothing is safe. And it's not just Mercari. Fakes are on Yahoo Auctions, they're everywhere. It's deeper than you think. Behind all of this is a massive fake industrial complex we will uncover today. Well, how do you deal with this? If you head to any fashion Discord or subreddit, there's always a steady stream of people asking for legit checks. Hey, I got this piece, is it real? Legit checks are like pest control. A pest control officer can tell you if there's a rat in your house, but they cannot claim your house is definitely rat-free. Ratatouille may be just really good at hiding in the walls and covering his trails, and similarly, someone can ID your piece as fake, but they cannot definitely say that it is real. Only in our case, the pest control officers possess varying levels of competency. A common scene is, someone posts a pic, hey, is this real? First response, definitely fake, no doubt. Second response, 100% legit. Who's gonna take responsibility if you pay top buck for a counterfeit, or if you discard a perfectly good piece because someone told you it was fake? Timmy and Jimmy, posting from their phones in middle school math class, certainly won't. Legit checks are a waste of time. And of course, you have capitalists selling you Jimmy as a service, backed up by the full force of images of green shields and green checkmarks and white men in suits. Sites where you upload pictures of your item, grab straight from the auction site, and they can tell you whether it's fake or not. I personally think this is just as useless. Don't waste your money. Because the way actual professional authenticators work is by reconstructing the way an item is made. They flip things inside out, look at the fabric, the way it's stitched, and the way the stitches are finished. There is absolutely no way you can do that from just a photo. So now we've painted a pretty bleak picture. Is it hopeless to identify fakes? No, I think it's actually quite easy. There's telltale signs, and the most effective ones are not where you expect them to be. Maybe you can't catch Ratatouille, but fortunately most of his cousins aren't that gifted. The first thing I look for is the tag. Look at the printing. Is it sharp or is it blurry? Does the font and the washing symbols match? One thing that can be particularly useful is the washing instructions in other languages. Fake makers typically cut corners there, and you'll often find missing accents or misspelled words. Remember the acne fakes I showed you at the beginning of the video? Guess how I could tell it was fake? Well, here's the product page, and if we look at the tag, it's clear from the weird camera angle and how blurry it is that the seller is afraid of you staring into the tag. Because if you do, you'll find that the wash tag in various languages is poorly aligned. Look at how crammed up the Russian text is compared to everything else. Or maybe this 𝗵𝗽𝗀 croissant bag on Yahoo Auctions. Again, they do not want you to look at the tags, because you'll find that the bag is actually made out of a 100% sheepskin coat, whatever that means. Oh, and it's all lowercase too, like some Substack writer. Often, you'll have a product code. Type that out into a search engine and see if it matches the product, because fake makers will cut corners and reuse the same tag for everything. And speaking of search engines, always pop the seller's photos into reverse image search. Often these fake sellers reuse the same image. What's the price like? A high price will not guarantee that something is real, but if a price is too good to be true, it is most likely fake. Because of all the fakes out there, sometimes legit sellers are providing original receipts from authorized retailers where they bought it. Right now, this is the most solid guarantee you have, but the problem is, faking a piece of paper is much easier than faking an entire piece of clothing, so it's only a matter of time before the fakes catch up. And the bad news is, even after all this work, you'll end up with some items that are obviously fake, some items that are probably real, and a boatload of stuff in the gray zone, where it's kind of sus but you're not really sure. it's better to hold off in those cases. To do any better, we need to go deeper. We need to go all the way back to the source of all the fakes. So in Japan, selling fakes is very illegal, in many ways more illegal than in the West, because you actually need a second-hand dealer license to sell second-hand clothing as a business. And if you get reports for selling fakes, you can get your license revoked by the government. This is why people will often say that Yahoo Auctions is safer, because there's more large vendors who are doing their own legit checks because they don't want to get their license revoked. Bad news, there's nothing special about Yahoo Auctions. So there are two types of individuals selling fakes. The first kind is your average Jane, who bought a handbag or t-shirt without knowing that it was fake, wore it happily for a few months, and is now reselling a fake without realizing it. For the most part, you don't have to worry about Jane. She is a tiny, tiny minority on auction sites. Who you do need to worry about is the guy running a whole business reselling fakes out of his dorm room. Joe is making dozens of these listings a month, all fakes, and he's definitely not licensed. And with that many listings, it's very tempting to get lazy. Remember how I mentioned how they are all reusing the same pictures? Well, all those product pictures have to come from somewhere, right? As it turns out, there's an entire fake industrial complex behind the scenes. Unlike Jane, Joe is not reselling items from his own closet. It's actually the opposite. Joe is no more than just a middleman. He's sloppily copy-pasting pictures straight from his own suppliers, from Chinese marketplace sites full of storefronts openly selling fakes. And that's why Joe's items are often brand new, tags attached. On Japanese auctions, like new tags attached is not a good thing. It should instantly perk up your sus detectors. We need to dive deeper. There exists communities dedicated to doing the opposite of what we're doing. They're seeking out fakes on purpose. From this point on, I'm gonna use the word rep, short for replica, in place of the word fakes, because this is how those communities are calling it. For the record, buying reps are very, very illegal, and I don't recommend you buy them. Use your money to support independent designers who are creating the future of fashion. But reps have become so commonplace in today's world of fashion that we can no longer pretend that they don't exist. We need to learn from the other side. I trust that you can find these rep communities on your own. Look at what they're buying. Look at the Chinese e-commerce sites they're going onto, because those are the same sites used by the fake sellers. Look at what kind of products are offered. What kind of images do they use? The interesting thing that happens when you get familiar with the rep scene is you start to notice patterns, not only for the photos, but for which specific items get repped. Reps have their own taste, a taste you can easily tell. You see, the way it works is, if you're one of the many factories in China making fashion reps, you're operating almost like a D2C fashion brand. You have to source samples from fashion brands or pay resale for archived grails. Then you cut everything up, develop matching fabrics, make tooling for the hardware, and then stitch together samples. Then you repeat this over and over again until it looks close enough. This shit ain't cheap. This is why designer fashion is so expensive. So as a factory, you can't afford to rep everything out there. This process can take months. Until a customer orders a piece, you don't get a single yuan back on your investment. Sure, you can rep a vintage Pierre Cardin dress, but nobody cares about Pierre Cardin, nobody wants reps of it, and you're gonna lose money making it. So what do you do as a rep factory owner? Unlike a legit fashion brand, you can't do runway shows, you can't take out ads in magazines. There's only one choice left. You produce pieces that already have customer demand, measured by likes, favorites, reposts, the currency of social media hype. If you poke around the rep community, you immediately notice this, just how hype-centric everything is. It's almost like the 2018 hypebeasts never left, only now they're wearing ERD, Acne Studios, and Demna. And it's always the same handful of pieces. For La Mer, it's always the leather bomber, the wrap coat, and the croissant bag. The most hyped up pieces. Remember how I told you there is a much easier way to ID fake sellers? This is it. Just look at the seller's profile. If their entire storefront is selling the same mega hyped up pieces rep factories are making, that's the deadest giveaway. Or if it's a newborn babby account selling that one hyped up piece and everything else is cheap junk to farm reputation, that's also your smoking gun. While rep factories can and do fix batch flaws, print better tags, and sometimes even make perfect, flawless recreations, they cannot ever escape the fundamental constraints on their business model. They cannot afford to deviate from the mainstream of hype, the mainstream of commodified images circulating upstream and downstream in a giant algorithmic river. So reps have their own taste. Back in 2020, the most popular sneaker was the New Balance 2002R protection pack. Everyone wanted one and nobody could get one. They were trading for used bicycle prices on StockX. Of course, it became a juicy target for rep factories. Eventually, it got to a point where if you saw someone wearing a pair, you just automatically assumed that it was a rep. Especially if 𝗖𝗵𝗽𝗀𝗀𝗂𝗏 was also wearing 𝗔𝘁𝗁, Supreme, and other hype brands. At that point, how do you know anything on his body is real? You would even guess the Calvin Klein boxers poking out of his jeans were fake too. If fakes have their own taste, ultimately, the best defense against fakes is having your own taste. If you're watching this video, I presume you're concerned with issues of authenticity. What does it mean to be authentic? How do we choose what to wear? In the voice of acclaimed film director, Wim Wenders.
How do you recognize identity? We're creating an image of ourselves. Images, above all, change faster and faster, and they have been multiplying at a hellish rate. We are attempting to resemble this image. Is that what we call identity? The accord between the image we have created of ourselves and ourselves? Just who is that, ourselves?
Are we buying pieces for authenticity, or are we buying into the image of authenticity, stamped by algorithmic advertising into cookie-cutter stereotypes, where real and fake are of one taste? That's it, thank you for watching, 𝗵𝗽𝗻𝗃 out.